So I wanted to just give a quick shout out to boundaries.
Okay. All right. Shout out to Boundaries.
Shout
This
out to
podcast
Boundaries.
is brought to you by Boundaries.
By boundaries. Hey, this is Amrita and Andrew. We're on a podcast journey to find our way through freelance life. If you're thinking about taking a leap off the beaten path in any part of your life, our inexpert advice is don't think twice. Okay, so first of all, it smells like a cat house in here because we are both drenched in perfume, and I love it.
I know,
What
we
are you
smell
wearing?
like so slutty. I'm wearing Santal, but then I sprayed something else in my room.
Okay, so you've got a cocktail.
Because I like my room to smell.
I've been using the Chanel at number 5 as a room spray because I am cultivating an ethos of luxury.
I
For 2021.
agree with that. I have a shop on Atlantic Avenue in Brooklyn. A few years ago, I bought an essential oil combo that says sensuality.
Yeah. Sensuality 2021.
And
That's
so I
the
spray that in my
watchword.
room.
Yeah, we've got smells, we've got lighting, we've got
We're
everything.
the Big Easy.
Yeah, it's the land of
Crescent
sensuality
City.
and excess.
Yes. And romance and dark
Fantasies,
fantasies. There we go.
which we hopefully will get into all of those things, both in the course of our conversation and in our time here.
Yep.
I wanted to tell you about getting here really quick.
Yeah.
So I had a rental car. We've had a lot of rental cars, but this was an instance where the rental car, like the robots had fully taken over.
Okay.
And I felt fully that the car was smarter than me.
I had
And-
this experience once before too.
And I'm like, oh, there's new gadgets since the last time I drove a car, but like this was like extreme.
Did it chastise you for everything you did?
Everything. It had something to say
Yeah.
about everything I was doing.
It's
It was
very belligerent,
critical.
these new cars.
Very belligerent, very critical. Because normally you're just like, okay, do I know how to turn on the headlights and the turn signal?
Adjust
like,
the mirrors. Let's go.
like I'm good. Yeah, I'm good. And so then I get on the road and I'm like, I'm like going 70 miles an hour and I'm like, man, my hands are so sweaty because I'm so nervous. I just must be so, nervous.
Oh, I thought you were going to say
driver.
there was some sort of steering wheel heater.
Well,
Was there?
so what had happened?
There's a steering wheel heater. They make those?
Yes.
I
I had no idea. So I was like, man, my hands are so hot. And I drove for like a really long, it wasn't even a cold day. So I was like, trying to oh, maybe I can crack a window on the highway. I'm like so hot. And then finally I was like, oh, it's like the steering wheel is actually hot. And the climate control was different for all 4 quadrants of the car. It chastised me for everything.
Changing lanes.
So it's like it has the light up thing on the
Yeah.
lights and the mirror and but this had an extra level too. Okay, this is a next level thing. So it has a thing where if it thinks that you're drifting,
it shakes.
it locks the steering.
Well, when we were in Cape Cod and I had to have I took my mom's car into the Subaru dealership for a couple things, headlight, whatever. And they gave me a loaner. They didn't explain. They gave me a brand new 2021 Subaru with all of these features, and they didn't warn me that the car turns off and on. It stops
When you come
or
to a
whatever.
stop, right.
And that one I was like vaguely familiar with, so I didn't panic. But when I tried to change lanes and things, and like the steering wheel is shaking and there's beeping. I know you are uncomfortable
I
just
hate cruise
philosophically
control.
with cruise control.
Yeah. Philosophically, logistically,
But I
everything.
am a man who will put cruise control on
Yes.
in the inner city.
Yeah.
Like urban
I've seen it happen,
driving,
yes.
I will be like,
Yes.
I've tested how low that cruise control goes, and it doesn't go under like 25.
Oh my
Unfortunately.
God! I didn't even know it would go that slow. Why would anyone want to be on cruise at 25 miles an hour?
Well, because at some point, if it's like a Detroit situation when there's not a lot of cars, and then you can set it slow to see if you can like hit all the green lights.
I couldn't figure it out. So I felt fully stumped. I was like, okay, we've reached the stage where we need to give like briefings on the car before we let people drive it away. And it's like at this level of automation, it feels like maybe what you're looking for in your driving experience is just to like have all the cars linked together.
Like
and
a
then
train.
There's stops, and then you can just get off and on whenever
and when
you
you
want
get hungry,
to.
you can just, someone can bring you food, or you can go to
go to the dining
train
car.
So you made it down here in one piece.
I did.
Picked you up from the airport on the outskirts of town. And we have been here for, 3 weeks?
2.5.
2.5 weeks. The first thing I'll say about that is we have worked our way through 5 king cakes, which if you know anything about a king cake, it's only served...
I didn't know.
It's only served this time of year.
Served from Epiphany to, Three Kings Day. Three Kings Day and Epiphany is the same thing, I guess.
Yeah.
Through to Mardi Gras.
Yep.
So we only have a limited amount of time to try all the
So this year,
different
that's
varieties.
January 6th through, which I think Epiphany is always January 6th because it's the number of days after Christmas. And then
to February 16th this year, I think.
I mean, there it's a cake with a hole in it, so it does look like a large donut. But by large, it's not a donut, but it is shaped like a donut. And
so it's really just like half air anyway. So
right.
you know, so I'm
kind of
ready.
a bready, a sweet bready item that I find so delicious.
It's irresistible, like truly.
And they're made in slightly different, different bakeries make it in different ways. And then there are tons of flavors. There's traditional, and then beyond that, there's like everything you can think of.
Cream cheese and praline and fruit fillings and chocolate and coffee. And, but we're ready for cake number 6. I think we're doing New Orleans, right?
Yeah, we're averaging 2 cakes a week.
Yeah,
But we're walking a lot.
We are walking. You're walking a lot.
Yeah, like 10 miles a day at the most. I average 5. I would say 5 miles a day.
Yeah, and it's so nice to be in an urban environment again. It's just like we talked about it last time, but it's just like that's the setting for me. And I just feel very, I mean, of course the weather has a lot to do with it, but I just feel like so energized and like full of life.
And this is New Orleans not at its best, obviously. I mean,
yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, it's like I can't imagine. I've never been here. I haven't been here during the season.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it must be super weird for people who live here and have such a subdued Mardi Gras season. Because apparently, there's multiple parades and, sort of events every single day of the season leading up to like Mardi Gras Day.
Yeah.
And all of that has been quieted this year.
I mean, last year they had Mardi Gras went on as planned because it was right before everything sort of shut down. So this is really the first year that it hasn't.
Yeah. Well, they just squeaked in right before, and probably was why it was so they had such an early surge here. Yeah. So I think that has also led to something else we've discovered, which is how COVID conscious the city is, and I think it's just because they were, if anything, even hit earlier than New York. So the way New York is, but but more.
It is really incredible how consistent people are with their mask wearing. I mean, nowhere that we've been, from New York to Detroit to Cleveland to Cape Cod, which Cape Cod was actually very conscious too. And
there were just fewer people
here in New Orleans. It's like on the street, just walking their dog by themselves. No one remotely close by. People are wearing their masks. So I feel a little odd walking around without. I carry a mask with me. Put it on if I'm going to walk
past somebody.
But even at 65 degrees, which is, where a lot of the days have been here in January, it's humid, and walking with a mask is like...
You get real wet.
It's very wet. Yeah. It's a very wet experience, this city.
So far that is...
But I'll say the good thing, so Mardi Gras is not going on as planned, but a replacement to the floats and the parades and the festivities this year is the decorating of homes in the neighborhoods. So I'm excited to see.
Have you been seeing some good ones on your rambles?
Some people have put so much effort.
Yeah.
That it's incredible.
Yeah.
Just huge sculptural paper mache, like they're not paper mache because they're weatherproof, but huge, just like cartoonish bugs and animals and people, classic New Orleans, like, musicians and people I don't even recognize.
Yeah. Like Harlequins and things like that. And, I've seen some of them, and I'm sure you've probably seen more because you've done a lot of like sort of rambling in the side streets and stuff. But yeah, it's really, really fun, and people are putting a lot of like time and energy into it, and hopefully we're gonna get to help out with the neighborhood house.
Yes.
As we joined a Facebook group for the neighborhood, and for those who are like decorating their houses, and so we'll see how that goes. Hopefully that will be fun, and we'll maybe meet some
local people,
neighborhood kooks. That's my hope. I want to hear more about your New Orleans thoughts.
Okay, I have several that I wrote down.
Okay.
And, this is not an exhaustive list, but first of all, and I think we probably already said it, but we're having a fantastic time here. I mean, the weather, the city is so beautiful. It's walkable. I will say the sidewalks are a killer because the oak trees have pulled up the
like
sidewalk in many places.
Half the cement, yeah.
And then if you go closer to the river, the sidewalk just disappears and becomes sand. So you have to walk in the road.
Or like sometimes you'll just be marching along on a like a residential street, and then there's just like a quicksand pit.
Yep. And then if you're driving, your car practically falls apart because it's like the worst maintained.
It's like
roads.
more holes than road on this like street that's right here on our
street.
Yeah. Oh my god.
But the good news is no one can drive faster than like 15 miles an hour.
So that actually helps with the pedestrian friendliness too, actually, because it's like, you can cross the road because they're not going anywhere.
We have the streetcar basically right out our door, right at the end of our block, which we haven't taken yet, but takes us anywhere in the city we want to go, really, because they connect to a couple of other lines. But my specific feelings, qualities about the city that I think speak to me as a person and my personality.
I have some thoughts on that too.
Okay, so first is an easy one, which is the weather, and that like we have been here in what we consider very mild weather, but the amount of parkas and full-on cold weather gear that people have pulled out, and I'm not exaggerating,
which I didn't even bring with me.
50-degree weather.
I didn't even bring cold weather stuff with me. Like I don't bring my winter. My
you were out in a tank top the other day, and a woman walked by in a full-on puffer jacket.
Yes.
Like ankle-length puffer jacket, and it was like, what?
I love that. I aspire to live in a place where I'm like bitching and moaning because it's like under 50 degrees.
2 days ago, we were at an outdoor brewery, the outdoor portion of a brewery, and we were the only people out there at some point because everyone else had gotten
packed
too
it
cold.
in. Yeah, it was too cold. And it had,
so they went to a warmer part.
The temperature had like dipped down to like 60 degrees probably. No, I'm like literally. It was like, at first it was like, 65 or something. And that seemed to be the cusp of what people were willing to tolerate. And then like as soon as the sun, like it started to get towards dusk, it wasn't even like dark yet. No. But it was like starting to get towards
5 o'clock.
And the sunset's later here in January. And but like everyone like just went scurrying for the patio that had the heaters.
So that's a quality that I love.
Oh my god, it is life-changing.
We're in a different time, as we all are. So the city is operating on a different circadian rhythm than it usually does. But even so, the city seems to be a much later one, which you and I are not morning people.
Oh, yes.
And it was really
we found our people here,
brought into full relief this past weekend when we ventured into the French Quarter for the first time and got a lunch, because we sat down at the table at like 2:15, and the server comes over and is explaining something, and then by way of nothing, she just says like, "Oh, and it's really nice that you got here so early."
And I don't think she was being sarcastic at all.
No, she wasn't.
Like, it was totally genuine. And I wish that you could have seen the expression on your own face. You were so happy. So happy. Like, you and my sister both share this quality of, like, being really pleased to be told that you're, like, ahead of schedule. Yeah. But especially what it reveals about the city, which was that, like, oh, like, brunch, 2:00, French Quarter, like,
I just felt
you're
like
nice
ultimate
early.
approval from the world.
Yes.
It's like, oh, if this is the metric I can meet, is like, oh, you just need, if you're up and out by like 2:30, then like you're the early bird. You're gonna get the worm. And I was like, God damn, I've always wanted to be the early bird. It's just not in my genetic.
And like circadian rhythm wise, this town seems to have like bars. You were telling me that under normal circumstances are like open 24 hours.
They have 24-hour bars.
And like are just like sort of like people go in for like a brew before work sometimes. Yeah. You know, a brew of a different kind. and like that, you know, it's not the typical like early closing that, you know, obviously now I think there's a curfew.
There's a curfew now, but yeah. But the New York Times had an article about New Orleans and Mardi Gras this year, and just by way of explaining how different it is, there was a bartender who's been doing it for 30 years who ends his shift at 11 p.m. when usually his shift doesn't start till midnight. And like this, I love this city. I mean, you know, I can only imagine in most times of the year when it's so hot.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
I mean, the nighttime is really the time.
Like t-shirt weather in January, like nighttime is the right time.
So soupy and like gross in July. So I love that this city seems to be really
on your schedule
for night people.
Yeah.
Another quality about this city is this is really weird, but I love lighting situations.
Yes. We talked about this in our
Okay, so it's established.
Cape Cod house, yeah.
So we love lighting situations, and I think don't fact check me or do fact check me. I feel pretty bold and right in saying this, that I think New Orleans leads in like the world, the country, in colored light bulbs sales. And
well, or like seemingly people who just have like colored lighting in their houses.
Yeah.
Like not just like out.
A lot of people just have purple bulb or red bulb. Just.
And there's always, you know, there's in like New York City, like there's always like one.
Yes.
You know, there's like one person on the block, but there's a lot of houses. I mean, and they're like houses too, like sort of like posh looking on the outside, and then it's just like they have a whole room that's just red, and it's like, what's happening in there?
Yeah, I don't know what's happening, but I really like it. I know it's sort of an odd thing to hone in on, but I've been doing a lot of walks and really enjoying everyone's lighting schemes.
Peeping into people's. Oh, I actually saw the other day. This was on the Black Pearl. Somebody who had a legitimately like a chandelier, a working chandelier, strung from a tree in their front yard, like.
A lot of people in the city do a lot of extra things, and I
it's
really
extra. It's extra, and the style here is very, you know, I like it. It's a little moody. It's a little gothy.
Yeah,
speaks to my Scorpio sensibilities.
Yeah, love that. Another quality of the city, as just in sort of a urban planning way, is that, you know, we are in what's called Uptown, which kind of encompasses.
Broadly.
Yeah, broadly, and it encompasses like several neighborhoods, and it's well established. It has some beautiful big homes. Even in this neighborhood, there's a lot of multifamily homes, and a lot of historic homes are very large, but multifamily. I mean, they're
both historic and multifamily.
Yeah. And you know,
so they can't be reverted really from that
because
format.
there's a lot of protections in this city, as you might imagine. Historical preservation on buildings. So all of us say I really love neighborhoods that mix single family with multifamily.
Yeah, like on the same block you get.
On the same block.
Yeah, we need more of that, and I think like this just happens to be that since they were historically that way. Yeah, it sort of stayed that way.
Well, and I wonder how that really happened, because you know, if you go to Savannah, if you go to Charleston, if you go to St. Augustine in Florida, The type of homes that are in this neighborhood, you wouldn't find multifamily homes
mixed in. I wonder if part of that is just because like there are natural boundaries of the city that force it to be
smaller. That is very true, and especially before they drained parts of the swamp between here and Lake Pontchartrain. New Orleans was not very big, and then they just had to like drain the swamp to make it as big as they could, and then at some point, if you go in any direction, you run into a body of water.
Right. So it's like you kind of have to, like, you had to cram in, and you got to have people, different, like.
Yep, and the trees here, even the trees that survived Hurricane Katrina, because there were many old growth trees that didn't make it. But even still, like the oak trees that are in the park, we're about a half-hour walk from a large park, Audubon Park, and if you go to City Park, which is even larger, and along the main thoroughfares.
I've been meaning to look it up, what type of tree a lot of those like sort of big like tangly ones are, but they're so pretty, and it's like you were saying something about how like people in the South are very sensitive about their old trees. Because there was what was it? It was like a lawsuit or something.
Yeah, well, I mean, the only jury that my mom has ever picked to be on was a trial about a tree. A trial about a tree. A tree trial.
A tree trial, and it was about preserving like an old tree versus like taking
widening
it
a road. I think.
Yeah. That is amazing. I had forgotten that detail that it was like that your mom was on that jury for the tree, but So I love that fact, and it does seem to bear out that there's like a lot of protections for the really old trees that are in the park, and they're kind of like the feature of some of the parks here is just like we have some really fucking old giant
really
trees.
Huge trees, and those because they're so huge and because they require so much, and their root systems spread like
so far
farther than you can imagine. There's not a lot of other growth around them, so you have these huge trees and then just sort of like
kind of
flat,
in the middle of an empty space.
Yeah, sort of sandy, barren. It's beautiful, and there's if you go to City Park, there are trees that are over 800 years old.
Wow!
And as they grow, and they're very gnarled, partially because the way that the wood is very pliable because of the storms that come through. If the wood wasn't pliable, then it would just fall apart. So it's resilient to the storm weather that comes through. But that means the branches go up and over and come down and hit the ground and go back up, and it's just like
all different directions.
Amazing. And in an effort to like save a lot of these, you'll see them. They have over time split in certain places of their trunk, and so to conserve them, they've poured concrete actually into parts of them to stabilize, and they've also stabilized.
I've seen like some of the like bracing, like where it has sort of like metal braces holding up the branches, or sort of kind of like gently guiding them which direction to go, so that they don't either like grow into a house or like fall on the road or whatever. But I hadn't seen the concrete. That's cool. Yeah. That's cool. There must be like whole teams of people who like manage.
I'm sure.
Manage that.
I'm sure.
Okay, I have one about the city too, which is sort of related to the nightlife thing, or nighttime thing. Is that this city has a very distinct drinking culture, and I love that.
Tell me more.
I mean, really, what is there more to say about that?
Yeah.
I mean,
well, the Sazerac was invented here.
Well, yeah. I mean, it has like storied history of like cocktails being like sort of, a lot of classic cocktails were invented here.
I think the cocktail itself, the idea was
I think that's right.
here.
I was going to say that, and then I was like, that sounds like something I made up fully. But if you can corroborate that, I think the cocktail was invented here, and several of the classic ones that we like know of, like on any cocktail menu, being like the classic ones were invented here. And somehow we haven't yet had a Sazerac in New Orleans, so that's on the list. But so there's that like sort of the history of that, but it's something that maybe because of that people really value it, and there's a lot of bars, and there's a lot of like daytime drinking. There's also no open container laws.
Right.
So you can just kind of walk with your drink, as I'm sure a lot of people know about the city. But so that works for me.
You know what else works for you, and I'm excited about. I'm excited about being with you on this journey, which is one of a rollerblading journey.
Oh, yes. I was like, where are we going with this?
It seems that there's a popularity here in the city, which is wild because so many of the streets would be impossible to roller skate on. But if you go to the park, there's some really nice, flat, well-maintained paths that there seem to be a pretty good number of